We weaponized our
We
currency.
weaponized it, which is why you are the global reserve currency. And the idea of a global reserve currency is not a new thing. Like Roman Empire, Dutch Empire, British Empire, there's like a very famous trend of basically becoming the global currency, and that's actually one of the best ways to assess if you're living in an era where an empire is in power. But what tends to happen over history is, one, if the money printing machine becomes closely tied to the people making the decisions that are elected, there's incentive to run basically there's incentives to push debt. Like if I'm running for election and I'm printing money to make your life better, usually indirectly, that's a good thing, and I'm going to get elected. And this starts to tie into populism of sort of short-term thinking with elected officials who are like structurally incentivized to be able to do that. Now, fortunately, those powers are held separately in the U.S., which has helped for a while, but there's starting to be pressure sort of between them, which is quite concerning. But what happened for these previous empires is you suddenly just have an incentive. If I'm only in power for 10 years, these macroeconomic effects take decades to play out, typically. And these have been playing out since we dropped the gold standard. This era has started, and at this point, our debt is so huge. We're paying more on interest on our debt than we are on national security. So like the amount of bonds we're issuing and the amount of debt we owe people is more than we pay on national security. And then our debt is also growing quicker than our economy. And so if your debt's growing quicker than your economy, the problem, it's obviously very simple things I'm saying, which you'd think would make it simple outcomes to fix, but it gets nuanced pretty quick. But if your debt is growing quicker than your economy, and if you're running an imbalanced budget where you're taking on new debt to pay for your debt, you get into this debt spin cycle where you can't pay it off. Now, the thing that makes that worse is then if suddenly kind of two things happen. One is if you weaponize your debt to too great of a degree. I don't know if we did that or not in Ukraine. Like I'm not informed on this topic enough to say. But we did weaponize our debt, and because of that, other countries started selling our debt. Well, once that starts, once the demand for your bonds goes down, you have to raise basically interest rates on those bonds to get that same demand. So your debt becomes more expensive. And so the debt you're using to pay for your debt becomes more expensive.
Shit.